Hey you want to know how court is banked? I'll show you exactly how court is banked and how you can use court as banks. And this will be the introduction into using promissory notes. The way people are using promissory notes is backwards. You're supposed to use it a certain way. This would also be the introduction to how you can actually, when it comes to the use of that birth certificate, you can use the court system as a bank for it, because it was designed specifically to be used that way. That's right. You heard me right. It was not an error. That thing called birth certificate, all that stuff about putting a trust non-UCC and all these other things, you can use it in conjunction with the court by making the court the bank and the process of infinite banking, to which another video has been done on that. But first, let's read something called escrow. Escrow. A written instrument, a written instrument, a written instrument, which by its term imports a legal obligation in which is deposited by a grantor. Automatically, they're letting you know within the first sentence that a trust is required for an escrow to exist, or your mere act of using an escrow is the mere fact of invoking a trust relationship. In other words, as it relates to promissory note, it is letting you know that for you to even begin to issue, write, or relate to any other party this thing called a quote promissory note, you need a trust. Tell me, how many people writing bill of exchanges and promissory notes have a trust? These different social media platforms, you will see IRS codes and IRS manuals riddled all over the place with people talking about, oh yeah, this is the address you send the promissory notes to. But what about the premise of why and how it's created? What about the premise of what the promissory notes itself will say? What about the premise of the parties involved? The IRS only comes into the equation when there's a scrutiny of the monetary value of the promissory note being taxed. These people don't know that. All these people writing promissory notes, putting all these address of IRS saying, oh yeah, this is where it goes and this is what the IRS is supposed to do about it. They don't read the other plethora of about 200 pages of IRS manual that says the only time you send it to this address is if we want to tax the monetary value of that promissory note. How come small pockets of information are being given to people on these social media sites? These people call themselves secure party creditors. These people are screwing themselves over without realizing it. The premise of it, which requires a trust, or the fact that the use of a promissory note evokes trust issues, is amiss in their mind. Escrow, a written instrument which by its term imports a legal obligation in which is deposited by the grantor. The one who will be depositing it is the grantor. Promisor, the grantor, the one depositing it, is also known as the promissor or obligor, or his agent, with a stranger, aka third party, to be kept in the depository until the performance of a condition or the happening of a certain event, and to be delivered over the guarantee, promisee, or obligee, meaning the one who's going to be delivering it. In other words, a promissory note is something that has a monetary value to it, aka an instrument that has monetary value to it, or any other instrument. Doesn't have to be promissory note that has monetary value to it. And whoever is acting as the escrow is acting as the bank to which you, the grantor, who will be coming through a trust so that it would not be subrogated and constructed through a constructive trust. You'll be coming through your trust and depositing that thing with monetary value into the bank, who will be acting as the middleman, who will be holding, aka to be kept by the depository until the performance, meaning the mere act of you depositing the promissory note is attached to some type of requirement of performance. And once that performance is met, aka contractual issue, aka condition, a specific video is done on condition, consideration, and other factors that must be included in any given contract, basic elements of contract, or the happening of a certain event. Once that's done, It is to be delivered over the grantee, meaning the one who will receive it, the one who is being granted upon, the promisee, the one who the promise is being related to, the obligee, the one to which the one granting it is obligated to give the monies to, by first handing it to a neutral third party until something is done. It's the same thing that's done in mortgage, where they open an escrow. Do you know you can use this same banks, aka courthouses, as an escrow? You hear a lot of people tell you court is bank. Do they ever stop to explain or tell you why and how courts are banks? This is another issue that's plaguing most people who say they know law, they know their rights, or they're going on about one thing or the other. They post some social media posts, a very small part, some very small clause. That's hype and nothing more. They just leave it there. It's either they're trolls, they're people who are hired to misinform and distract people, or they think they know something, or they do know something and they're not trying to give to you. They're leading you on. But 9.9 out of 10 people who speaks about court as bank don't know what, why, or how. They don't know what they're going on about. In its origin, the doctrine of escrow applied only to deeds of grant or conveyance of land. Then in its beginning. But it was soon extended to other sealed instruments, meaning when you put this into the court, it will be through a sealed manner. Meaning when you put this into the court, it will be through a sealed manner. Meaning when you put this into the court, it will be through a sealed manner. And has come to apply to a variety of instruments, including bonds, contracts for the sale of land, contracts for the purchase of personal property, corporate stocks, deed, discontinuances and release of cause of action. Oh man. Contracts for the settlements of will contests, commercial papers. I wonder what else we know that is categorized as commercial paper. I wonder, could it be that birth certificate? Could it possibly be that social security number? Could it possibly be that certificate of title? Could it possibly be that deed to that house that's being traded by the MERS system on the bond and stock market by bundling it through AA, triple B, double B types of bonds and derivatives markets? Application for insurance. Look at this. So you're telling me that if you have a life insurance, like banks do BOLOs or BOLIs, whole life insurances, bank-owned life insurances, you can do the same thing and use that as a form of bank and then intertwine the court system as an escrow, aka a bank, for a very specific purpose. You can actually use these banks systems as shelter. Did you know that? And subscription papers. Anyway, let's go back to the rules. Deposit into the court. Deposit is a financial term. So we've read what escrow is. Now, what is this word deposit? Deposit. It's an action, a verb, to put down, as a deposit of earnest money, to put money or things in a place for storage. The third definition is to put money, or this is still Ballantyne's third dictionary, to put money or things in a place for storage or safekeeping. To put money in a bank. To put money in a bank at interest or on checking account. Interest account is savings, which is under the scrutiny and condition that whoever is holding it can trade with it, and then they give you a little small interest from the benefit of gambling with your money. Or checking account, which is saying, well, they can't gamble with your money under certain conditions. An accumulation money or an article deposed. Bank deposit, certificate of deposit. I wonder what else is a certificate. Maybe that birth certificate. Maybe that certificate of title. Interesting. Depository. Wait, so you're telling me there's not just one depository trust companies? Meaning you can create yours and use an escrow for the same purpose? Deposit for collection. Deposit in court. Wait. Deposit in court. Did I just read this right? Deposit in court? Okay. All right, remember, this is just an introduction video. Depositor. Depositor's guarantee fund. General deposit. Joint deposit. Special deposit. different types of endorsement, right? Depository, as mentioned right here. A person, firm. I wonder what type of entity can act as a firm when it comes to financial interests and things. Could it be the express trust we've been speaking about this whole time? Interesting. If you've yet to read the post or watch the video regarding private money placements, you're doing yourself a great disfavor by listening to this video. I highly suggest you go watch that video and read that post first. Depository, a person, firm, or corporation receiving a deposit for safekeeping, aka a depository. Like the Water Street in Chicago, Depository Trust Company. Now that we know what deposit, and now that we know what escrow is, Rule 67, deposit into court. Don't they tell you court is bank? We know that deposit unequivocally as a banking related term. The court is acting as an escrow, aka a third party that holds something, aka an instrument of monetary value, until certain performance is met to be given to someone else. Pay attention to the extremely ambiguous language of this rule. It is ambiguous because it is an open template that is saying, hey, public at large, we can act as your bank if you know what you're doing. And if you have other things ready that we don't speak of in these rules, but are dealing with financial related matter and trust issues. Once you get that done, come on down. We got you. You can do the same thing the founding fathers did. You can do the same thing that the Mint does. Because when the Reconstruction Era was engaged in, Reconstruction Era did not remove, omit, annul, or kill anything. It is precisely as it sounds. It reconstructed things. So now, once upon a time, you used to go to A Street to do something. But someone just switched up and reconstructed the streets or the things that exist in those streets. And say, instead of going to A Street to do one thing that you used to do back in the 1700s, you could now go to C Street to do the exact same thing. In order to hold power, confusion is important. Because why would you destroy something of value just because you want to hold power, when in truth that which is to be destroyed is the same thing that keeps you in power? So why destroy it? Just reorganize it so that people are lost and confused. And once people are lost and confused, they are distracted with the woes that comes with loss and confusion. And thus, they lose information in transition, get lost in the sauce. And then you, the one who reconstructed it, can now hand them an alternative form of existence that will benefit you and perpetually put them in form of slavery. In summary, that is what Reconstruction Era did. But don't worry, some people know what's going on, and it's been shared with you because it's all right in your face. Beyond some BS phrase of saying court is bank. Okay, cool. Court is bank. Now what? Is it because they say the judges are in bank? EN space BANC. Okay, that's a Latin word for in bank. Now, how is that anything relating to what you can do with money? No one is telling you that. How or where does it even show you that court is bank? Just start from there. Well, here we are starting from there. Deposit into court. Remember, we've read what deposit means. And we've read what escrow is. And this is under the presumption that you have heard the phrase that court is bank by a lot of speculators and ignorant people. Everything else we're speaking of regarding express trust is the 99% that fills the rest of the whole in here. Depositing property. Depositing property. Depositing property. If any part of the relief sought is a money judgment, meaning if you are suing someone, or see, English, especially legalese, is math. Everything in the universe is mathematics. Express it itself in a different form. meaning you can divide it into sections, add or remove. Legalese is just math. Meaning here's one option and here's another option, to which the use of bank as a court, aka depositing things into court, is applicable. If any of the relief sought is a money judgment in any of these other relief we went over on Patreon. If any of the relief sought is a money judgment or the disposition of a sum of money or some other deliverable thing, a party, it's not saying the plaintiff, it's not saying the defendant, it's not saying someone who's engaged in an in rem or in personam action. It's not saying whether you're doing a supplemental action. It's not saying whether you're doing a garnishment. It's not saying whether you're dealing with actual regular formal action or not. A party, it gives you an open template, a notice to every other party. It's not saying you have to sue someone. It says you can. And the only way whereby if you're suing someone, you can begin to deposit something is if you already have a judgment. But there are other circumstances involved where you can put other parties. They don't necessarily have to be an opposing party. You can put other parties on notice and by leave of the court may deposit with the court all a part of the money or thing, whether or not that party claims any of it. In other words, it's a trust relationship. The depositing party must deliver to the clerk a copy of the order permitting the deposit, and that is with the leave of the court. This order is not an order of judgment. It can be, but if you're not suing someone or if you haven't sued someone, you would have to say the intent. And see, all these people saying we don't do motions, we don't do motions. Do you know it is through a motion that you do this? There's a very specific type of motion that you put in. And it's not even a matter of dispute as to whether they can deny it or not. It's just by operation. Think of it as going into a bank and filling out that slip, and you give it to that clerk and the clerk gives you a receipt. That's exactly what's going on here. The depositing party must deliver to the clerk a copy of the order permitting deposit. Oh man. This first part is what's wholly applicable when you're doing certain types of things that we go over on Patreon. The second part is specific to people who are adjudicated formally by suing, or you've already sued and you have a judgment. And that's specifically Ascertain 28 U.S.C. 2041 and 2042. Go read that for yourself. Investing in withdrawing funds. So you're telling me you can use this court system to invest? Oh my goodness. Okay. Money paid into court under this rule must be deposited and withdrawn in accordance with 28 U.S.C. 2041 and 2042 and any like statute, which is specific to having a judgment and then using a court as an escrow, aka a bank, for said judgment. The money must be deposited in an interest-bearing account or invested in a court-approved interest-bearing instrument. That's why I said the second part isn't so applicable to you, because there are two specific restrictions to it. It's that you first have to have a judgment according to this, and two, they are the ones who act as a trustee to determine where it goes. If you want to withdraw it or invest with it, because they are a party as a trust protector to that fund, if you use it in the second manner. If you use it in this first manner, in this letter clause within this section A, it's a completely different game. The least I can do for you is to show you where the speculation begins, where no one have showed you, where they left you hanging. If you want to keep getting free information, you keep getting free information on YouTube. If you want more details, come on over on Patreon. And that free information would only take you as far. If you want more detailed information that are functional, that will tell you which forms to use and what to do and the explanation of it, come on over on Patreon. Until next time, take care. Best of luck.